Now, the pulse qualities in this system, do people know about Dr. Hammer's Chinese pulse diagnosis, a contemporary approach? It's like 800 pages, and it's a very, very good reference book for pulse diagnosis. So, in that book, the pulse qualities are organized according to volume, shape, width, depth, length, and there are some other categories, but these are the major ones. There's 4 or 5 robust volume pulse qualities, but to give you an idea of when we talk about robust volume, this is our robust pounding, our hollow full overflowing wave, which we just spoke about, our flooding excess wave, which is a sign of acute heat, like infection, fire, that sort of heat, as opposed to a more chronic heat in the blood. All these, the robust volume qualities, they're conditions of excess and heat. And our example here is the hollow full overflowing waveform. Now, our reduced volume qualities, they tell us about conditions of qi deficiency and cold. The example I've put up here again is the flooding deficient waveform, where the system, the physiology of this system just does not have enough qi to allow the impulse to rise, to give the impulse the energy to rise to the qi depth. So we also have here qi depth yielding, qi depth diminished, qi depth absent, and then we have the pulse. The next stage is starting to lose the blood depth. Then we get to our deep pulse and our absent. So they're all our reduced volume qualities. The next category is the shape. Now, this is divided into 2 major categories. The first one being the fluid qualities. And there's only really one, that's the slippery quality. It's the one that feels like the impulse is sliding under your finger. Under normal circumstances, the impulse hits your finger straight up and down. A slippery quality has a sensation, and I mean, you can do that with your finger, and it gives you actually a really good representation or a tactile representation of what the slippery quality feels like. The slippery quality often has a soft sensation to it if it's felt with the reduced volume qualities. And under those circumstances, it's a sign of qi deficiency, dampness, I guess. The one thing that we can categorically say is with the slippery quality, it indicates there's a turbulence to the flow of blood. So that flow is not moving straight through the vessel. So there's turbulence, which is requiring more energy to move the blood. So the turbulence can come from a number of things. It can come from excess fluids. It can also come from heat, particularly at the blood depth and in this hollow full overflowing waveform. Often there will be an intensely slippery quality at the blood depth that's not present at the qi or the organ depth. And that's an indication of the heat creating turbulence to the flow of the blood. So that's our slippery quality. Now, the non-fluid qualities, these ones don't have that same sensation of moving. Now, we have the non-fluid hard pulses. So we have the even qualities. The hard even qualities tell us about the process of qi stagnation, developing heat, and consuming fluids. So that's our taut, tense, tight, and wiry. Dr. Hammer used to talk about, or have the analogy of the violin, but clearly the taut is much wider than any violin string. But it gives you the idea that as there's qi stagnation, the pulse kind of gets a little bit wider and builds up a little bit of tension. As that's our taut quality. As the qi stagnation stays longer, it builds up a little bit more heat. The pulse starts to get harder. So as we go across the continuum, the taut, tense, tight, and wiry, we have an increasing qi stagnation, increasing hardness, increasing heat, and then with the tight and wiry, we're really starting to affect the fluids of the system. I guess the tense quality in this system would equate with what I was told was a wiry quality when I was going to school. And my first experience with pulse diagnosis, it seemed that there were 2 qualities that I was told that everybody had, and it was wiry and it was slippery. So I've since coming across this system and studying it for a while, I can see that there's a whole lot more to it than that. So our uneven hard qualities, they indicate sort of a fluidity of the circulation of qi and blood, and they don't feel even. They have a roughness to them. So the choppy quality has quite a sharp sensation to it, like a grating sensation. Now we also have the vibrations. We have our rough vibration and smooth vibration. So they're all a variation of the same sensory experience. However, the choppy is way more jagged and hard to the fingers. And it's our indication of blood stagnation. And our vibrations, the smooth vibration when it's felt feels like sort of a buzzing under your fingers, often at the very top of the impulse at the chi depth. It's a sign of somebody who tends to worry or is a worrier. And the rough vibration is our sign of heart shock and PTSD. The width of the pulse tells us about the condition of the blood. We have the thin quality, which tells us about blood deficiency. But in this system, we also palpate the pulse, rising our fingers from the organ depth up through the blood depth to the chi depth, and monitoring the impulse should come under our fingers. And if we have any sort of filling out of that impulse before it comes back under our fingers, we call that either blood heat or blood thick. We know that there is heat or something that's making the pulse incredibly wide at the blood depth. Now, the depth tells us about the location and the chronicity of disease. So basically, the more superficial pulses are the more acute, and the deeper pulses are the more chronic. And the length of the pulse, basically, they're short and long. And the short pulse tells us when we're feeling with all six fingers, a short pulse, you only kind of feel under your middle finger. And that tells us that there's one of two things. We've got major stagnations in our middle burner, or a condition of profound deficiency in our proximal and upper burners. And a long pulse, if you're feeling the pulse with all six fingers and you're feeling the pulse extending beyond your fingers, if there's no robust pounding, or if there's no a whole lot of tension associated with that, because that would indicate heat, then we know that that person has robust energy, like they have good chi in the long pulse, in the absence of qualities that indicate heat.